I remember moments when I had sleepless nights, was in and out of depression, used to cry myself to sleep, suicidal thoughts. This was my life before. Growing up, it was just me and my mum, so I never knew my dad growing up. Without my father, I grew up in a way where, I was missing something. I was constantly missing something, so I grew up with a lot of anger issues. These anger issues would be quite clear inside of my house. So one thing that I would have at home was a lot of domestic issues with my mum. It would be moments where it would just start with disagreements. It would start with me just shouting, small pushing and shoving here, but eventually it started to escalate into moments where I'll physically harm and hurt my mother. I remember a moment where I was 11 or 12 at the time, and we were preparing to go to this church that we were going to, and we had gotten into an argument, and in that moment I was so angry and I just blacked out. And when I came to, I saw my mum, she was crying on the floor, hysterically in pain. And I remember this moment. It was something where from that point forwards, not just in my house, but my anger started to develop outside, especially with the people that I was with. I was someone which people would say a chameleon, someone who tried to blend in and do everything. So in my friendship group, I was someone who was the ringleader, someone who would set trends, be the first one to do many things. But at the same time, I tried to help people. I tried to be someone that would help others. I tried to be someone who would do well in their education. I tried to be someone who, would get attention for females, all of these types of things. But because of this persona that I was bringing up, it was only hurting me. One insecurity that I had was the color of my skin. I remember at school, there was people, they would make a lot of jokes, but to me, I actually started to take them to heart because it was a constant thing of where these jokes were made to the point of where I didn't think my skin color was normal. I wanted to be a different color shade. And I remember a moment in my life where I'd gotten out of a relationship and I didn't take it well. I was crying myself to sleep. I had suicidal thoughts. I had many sleepless nights. This was over a certain period of months. And I remember the exact moment where I wanted to kill myself, but someone had told me like my life has purpose. My life, was actually something for me to value. So this was my life before. The moment when I came to the Universal Church, I was actually headed towards the library because I was actually going to study. And someone had stopped me and spoken to me and actually invited me to the youth group. I came that following Sunday. I left saying that God is real and God can actually change my life. From there, things didn't start to change immediately. I remember I sat down with an assistant at the time and I'd spoken to them about what I'd been through, about my issues, especially the suicidal thoughts. One thing that I'd heard that I'd never heard in my life before was that if I had taken my life in that moment, my soul would have gone to hell. That was my first time in my life actually hearing the truth directly in my face like that. So I knew in this place, my life can actually change, but it's down to me to actually do it.
I actually met Jermaine in the church in Blarsdale. He was actually part of the youth group. That's the initial stages where I actually met Jermaine. He spoke about a lot of things that he was going through within himself. Jermaine spoke to me in regards to the depression and the suicidal thoughts when he was in a relationship with a girl. And I think something happened, and that was one of the reasons that really made him sink.
I'll never forget, it was actually a night vigil. And what was spoken about was making a covenant with God. Regardless of me being in the church, saying that I was a Christian, I knew I didn't have a covenant with God. I was still missing the Holy Spirit. And I remember there was actually a night vigil that was announced. In this night vigil, the campaign was actually announced as well. And I knew that I had to make a covenant with God. I remember the decision that I made is I had taken my SIM card out of my phone and I had broken it and I had placed it on the altar. And for me, that was the first decision that I made, which helped me to move forward. I started to actually build a relationship with God. I actually started to take time in terms of seeking Him, meditating, actually building a genuine, caring relationship with God and showing to God, look, I want your spirit and I want to show my love for you. All the things that happened in the past, they don't matter. But when I came off that altar, the assurance grew that I was going to receive the Holy Spirit. It was 2 weeks later, it was a night vigil going into the new year. And I said, God, I don't accept to end this year not receiving your spirit. So I went in that faith to that night vigil. And then in the moment of the seeking, I remember it was actually the Lord's Supper we were taking part of entering the new year. And that moment I received the Holy Spirit. And it wasn't a thing of where I felt emotion, because there was many times where I thought I received the Holy Spirit based off emotion, but it was certainty, it was joy, it was assurance, knowing that if I died in that moment, I would go to heaven, I would be with God, and that was the most wonderful thing. How I am now, I'm a completely different, changed person. First of all, my relationship with my mom is amazing. We get on very well. Inside, I have joy. Inside, I have peace. I don't have to rely on external things. My joy actually comes from God, and it's a privilege being in His presence. I'm no longer depressed. I no longer have suicidal thoughts. I want to live. God is starting to use me a lot more. Becoming an assistant is actually a privilege in terms of serving Him, something that I would actually never expect. I just want God to use me more throughout my life to make a difference, especially for those who that their life has been lost in a way that mine was before.
The joy that he has now compared to how he was before is totally different. Another thing that I've seen within him is direction. He has direction in terms of where he wants to be in life and what he wants to achieve.
There was another part in my life where I had to go to the altar again, and to be honest, I was in two minds because I had a financial issue at the time.
I'd seen for a period of time he hadn't had a job, and of course this was a problem that needed solving because he was at that stage and that age where he needed to provide, and that was a struggle for him initially to get a job. But he finally managed to get a job, and the job was actually quite decent. He was working in construction at that time. He was doing well, but then something happened and it seemed to not be working there anymore. Now, it was a struggle for him to find a new job. Jermaine was fighting like Hannah, and he made a vow on the altar to see a difference in his financial life.
In the result of me prioritizing God, the financial issue actually had resolved itself. I even remember for the job that I was working now, I was actually using my faith. I would go there to the office, I would anoint the corners of the office. I would actually receive the position that I wanted to receive, and I'm still working in that position today, working with those who have anger issues, those who have probably been despised by those around them, and honestly, it's a blessing.
He speaks to me about it with a lot of excitement. Now he's engaging with young people that were like him previously, and now he's in a different situation, being filled with the Holy Spirit. He's able to give to them something that he didn't have.
Now, if I didn't go to the altar and I didn't make an alliance with God like how Hannah did, I wouldn't be here today. God is one that you should trust, and even God is not a man that he should lie. Now, if you are to make that jump, you can clearly say to God, God, look, I made that jump and my life didn't change, but the God that we serve won't allow that to happen. So if you make that jump for your life to transform, God will catch you, and God clearly surprised me in every area of my life. I didn't think my life would be the way it is today when I made my decision, but it is. If you make that jump, if you make that vow like Hannah did, God will truly surprise you and honor your life.